Пані та панове, це
Ladies and gentlemen, this is 159th day of Russia's invasion and the 9th year of the Russian war against Ukraine. I am Andriy Shevchenko on behalf of the team of Media Center in Ukraine Forum. I welcome all the journalists who tell the world about our fight for freedom. Today, we have Volodymyr Kudrytskyi, CEO of Ukrenergo, national energy company. Mr. Volodymyr, last time you visited us here, we discussed the exports of Ukrainian electricity to Europe. So can you tell us about the developments? Good afternoon, everyone. Recently, we had quite a pleasant event. The Europeans allowed to increase the exports of electricity from Ukraine to the EU countries in 2.5 times, from 100 to 250 megawatts. Those volumes give Ukraine a chance to earn quite a lot, so that the energy sector of our country would be better prepared for winter, which would definitely be a difficult one, but with necessary preparation and funding, we will definitely be proudly surviving it. There are three elements that will require detailed preparation and funding, namely the planned repairs of power plants, the repairs of electricity lines, power lines, and the procurement of coal and natural gas as supplies. Previously, with 100 megawatts, we as an operator generated enough proceeds, but when we increase the amount of allowed exports, this figure might increase substantially, and these are the funds that Ukrenergo will be able to redirect to the marketplace, so that all of the power plants involved in the system would be able to fund the repairs and preparation for winter. As to the power lines, main power lines, we repair as business as usual. Hopefully, before winter comes, we will deliver on all 100% of preparation plans. As to the procurement of fuel, Ukrenergo plays two important roles. Wears two hats. Firstly, we ensure well-balanced work of those power plants that use natural gas as their fuel, and a couple of days ago the government passed the resolution that Ukrenergo will fund the creation of strategic reserves of coal for winter for Ukraine. We're talking about 2.5 billion hryvnias around. And up to 1 million tons of coal, additionally to the planned volumes of supply that were planned initially before. Respectively, this will allow us not only during winter to allow to provide coal and thus power, electricity coming to our grid and to our consumers. This also gives us good chances of keeping the volume of exports that we have today and even keep increasing them looking forward, because we will not stop at 250 megawatts. We plan to regularly, every month, to increase those volumes. The difference in prices between the Ukrainian and European markets is colossal now. It's 5 or 7 times difference. So obviously such transactions would keep being quite profitable for Ukraine for quite a while, which means that an important task for the state-run companies and to the governments at large to maximize the generation of Ukrainian coal, thus ensuring the employment of Ukrainian miners, and use this coal to ensure that Ukrainians will get electricity, and what's in excess, we will export it, generate it revenues to the budget. Questions, please? You need to use the mic. Have you identified the source of funding of Ukrainian coal? And at which stage is the draft law which would have to allow you to redistribute funds, except for the repairs of main power lines? Well, as to the sources, it's still under discussion because this resolution has been passed and published quite recently. As to the draft law, as far as I know, it's being passed. Now it awaits the signature of the president. So after he signs it, we will get a real mechanism so that those substantial revenues which we used to get previously, 3 billion hryvnias from selling the access to international grid, and future revenues that we will keep receiving in the upcoming month through the end of this year, we'll be able to redistribute those profits among the market players, because those revenues should have been used to invest into interconnectors, to build the connectors to international grid, but now the priorities are quite different. The top priority is to focus all the efforts, including financial resources, so that the Ukrainian energy system will successfully pass the upcoming winter. As to the sources, that was the answer to your question. Yes? No, you. Oksana Polishuk, Ukrinform. The coal would be supplied mostly from the Ukrainian mines. That would be the priority, right? But which means that we'll still need to import some coal. From which countries? What are the volumes we're talking about? First of all, the priority is to domestic coal. And the key here would be the role of state-run mines. If we manage to maximize the generation domestically and even increase it through mid-October, then the volumes of imports would be minimal or even at zero. As to potential sources of importation of coal, speaking about the coal that we are not mining in Ukraine, anthracite, so the major producers of anthracite and its equivalents are South Africa and partially Australia. So these are the countries where we expect this rare coal to be supplied, because there are only a couple of vendors. Okay, what would be the route to deliver it here? Because we are aware that there are problems with our ports. Well, it will not be delivered to the Ukrainian ports, but the details of the logistics, it's too early to voice them out. We're still discussing the route. We expect that these would be small volumes which will be able to deliver by land to Ukraine. How much more expensive the logistics would become? Your assumptions? Well, here it's not even the cost of the logistics, but the cost of the coal. At the world markets, it costs more than $400 spot prices, while in Ukraine it's substantially cheaper. We're talking about below 100 if we'll recalculate it by the current exchange rate. So that's why it's important to maximize the domestic production. We do have an opportunity by consuming the domestically mined coal with very low prime costs to use it in power plants and deliver electricity domestically, sell it abroad, and employ miners in the coal industry. So it's a win-win strategy. So we're not talking here about importation. We're talking about internal resources first and foremost. I would like to get back to the experts of energy. You said that there is an agreement to increase the supply of Ukrainian electricity to the EU 2.5 times. For us, that's a potential opportunity, or is there any realistic plan behind it? It's a fact. Come Saturday, the volume of exportation has been increased already. Today, I received the first report from the Association of the European systemic operators, ISOE, that the Ukrainian European network has worked in a stable regime, which gives us good technical grounds to claim that we might increase the supplies, because we remember that it's the issue of technical stability of this integrated energy system was the major limiting factor to start exports. But now, when all of the technical preconditions have been met, the Europeans will gradually give us more and more volumes, and the fact that the energy system works in a stable manner would be the precondition for the increase of the volumes. And physically it happens through the grid that connects us to Slovak Republic and Romania, right? Yes. But also the grid with Hungary. Commercial supplies to Hungary are not happening, but from technical standpoint, actually the exchange of electricity happens through this whole interface, Ukraine-Europe. You cannot tell exactly through which line, roughly speaking, which volume of commercial supplies goes through. Here we use the infrastructure with Hungary for technical reasons as part of our interconnection with Europe. Technical clarification. How does it happen? Does it mean that these are the countries where there are buyers of our electricity, or our electricity goes to the general pool and then it's being divvied up? No, it goes directly to end consumers. From physically speaking, the electricity comes to general pool, so to speak, or cauldron. It's worth stating that in Europe there is a huge deficit of energy resources, huge prices for everything, for electricity and all sorts of fuel, which they signalize us about this. And we know that Prime Minister of Italy quite recently asked people not to wear ties to offices so that they will not spend so much electricity for ACs, air conditioning. The German government will stop using street lights at night or warming up water in swimming pools. So the energy crisis provoked by Russia, by its aggression, also already gives well, demonstrates its consequences. And here Ukraine should grasp this opportunity when we can not only ask for help but also provide help ourselves in the form of this energy exports. Which countries those commercial buyers come from? Well, Slovak Republic and Romania, two countries with whom currently we are trading. We expect that soon enough Hungary will join them. Also, before that, we had open exports to Moldova, and Ukraine now provides 30% of energy balance of Moldova with our supplies. And also we have a specially delivered line to Poland, through which we export 2 megawatts, about 200 megawatts. So Ukraine, if we combine all those volumes of exports that we currently have, it already became quite a substantial player, the European energy market. And this role will keep increasing the more we get permits for increasing the volumes of exports. At the very end, I would like to say that we reached principal agreements with our Polish colleagues to relaunch the interconnector between the countries, which was discontinued from at the time of disintegration of the Soviet Union. So this modernized infrastructure would still allow to substantially increase our commercial trades and transactions with Europe. If there are no further questions, I have the last question about winter. We recognize that Ukrenergo will financially provide the cushion for the whole of Ukraine. So what would it practically mean for the consumers? Well, if the Ukrainians are being warned that this winter might be cold, and those who buy heaters, hoping that electricity will help people to warm up their houses, will the Ukrainian energy would help to compensate for the lack of needed volumes of gas. Here, I would not discuss the assumptions or forecasts, but let me tell you about the experience of previous years. Very difficult winter, autumn and winter to 2020, even more difficult 2021. Last year, despite the general high daily temperatures, which were a couple of degrees higher than usual, but still the system has been used even more intensively because people try to substitute the use of gas with the consumption of energy, and that's what happened in that winter because of this effect. And knowing about this effect, knowing how to forecast and simulate it, Ukrenergo is performing all those functions now. In summertime, get your sledges ready for winter in summertime, as the saying goes, right? So that all the consumers will be reliably supplied with energy, so that people would, if need be, could also switch to heaters, electricity heaters. That was the last question of this briefing. That was Volodymyr Kudrytskyi, the CEO of Ukrenergo, National Energy Company. Our next briefing